Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the eagerly awaited new Tchaikovsky Fifth Symphony with Manfred Honeck and the Pittsburgh Symphony. Now, this has been one of those recordings that we've talked about for a bit before it came, and I understand why, because Honeck has been very unpredictable, but when he's on, he is the hottest thing out there. And his Tchaikovsky has had its hits and misses. Symphony No. 6, the Pathétique, was very, very good. Number 4, it was a dud. It was mannered and twisted and pulled about. This is one of the hot ones, let me say straight out. This is major, absolutely major. It's the best of the three. Now, it's worth pointing out that this is Honeck's second recording of the Fifth with Pittsburgh. The first one was made back in 2006 during his very first concerts in Pittsburgh by Exton, the Japanese label. And that was already a very fine performance. It really was. This one is virtually identical. I mean, down to the second in timing, but it may be a little bit more confident in execution, and the sonics are even ballsier. My God, it's a knockout sonically. So this has nothing but good things going for it. Now, there are basically two ways to do Tchaikovsky, right? Especially the Fifth, because the Fifth is the most Germanic of his late symphonies. It's the one that conductors who conduct Brahms like to do, because it's kind of similar, even though Tchaikovsky hated Brahms's music, but it doesn't have extra percussion. It doesn't do obvious crazy things, except in the finale, which everybody likes to sort of shit on because it's considered to be formally dysfunctional. Well, that's only if you play it that way. Honeck doesn't play it that way, but more on that anon. I mean, so you can play the symphony in a very, very sort of intellectually elevated way, with integrating the motto theme as it reappears in each movement, and caring a lot about things like balance and things like that. Or you can be Russian about it and just go for mayhem. And this is the mayhem version. I mean, this has all the subtlety. It has all the subtlety of a fart in a crowded elevator. And I mean that in the best possible way. Honeck loves to write program notes, and he writes very long, extensive program notes explaining the work and why he does what he does and justifying what he's doing with reference to the score and all. I wish he wouldn't do that. I really do, at least in some performances, because the whole virtue of this performance is its completely uninhibited spontaneity. And, if you believe that the romantic movement is the triumph of raw emotion over cool intellectuality and formal poise, then this is the performance for you. And Tchaikovsky's music does that. It has, of course, the cool intellectuality and formal poise, but it's a question of balance of elements. And here, spontaneity and freedom reign, and they reign in a good way, because, yes, there's a lot of, pulling and tugging about of tempi here, but really there is nothing intellectual about what Honeck is doing. His notes make him sound very smart, but frankly, slowing down for the lyrical bits and speeding up for the loud bits is not an intellectual program. It's what the music wants to do, and it's frankly pretty obvious. And most bad performances of this symphony are bad because they refuse to do what's obvious. They refuse to do what the music clearly wants to do. Well, Honeck is totally on board with this symphony and its demands, but he does have his tchotchkes, shall we say, of tinkering around. Let's talk about the whole performance a little bit and go through it systematically, because it really deserves attention in that respect, step by step. The opening introduction on the clarinets and low strings, do 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 do, right? You think he's never going to get through it. I mean, that was the scary part of this symphony. Maybe intentionally so. I mean, the clarinets are very soft, the lower strings more prominent. There are moments where the melody sort of gets lost in the accompaniment, and he makes sure that the phrasing is very legato. So instead of dum, da da da, da da da, it's I mean, sometimes you don't even hear how many notes it has. You begin to worry. But no worry. In fact, this is a very vibrant and fresh performance. The tempos are quick throughout. I mean, throughout the opening movement, jump, 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 jump. You know, it moves. It moves like Klemperer moves, who's also quite fast, by the way, which is remarkable. And the reason that his manipulations work, and again, this is not like, you know, I don't mean to say he's not a talent or a genius conductor. He is, but it's not genius to say, well, you know, it's getting lyrical, it's broadening out. Let's slow down. Da 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 da, ya da da da, ya da da. Yeah, of course you want to slow down. I mean, Markevich doesn't, but you can, and it works perfectly well. But the reason it works so well is because his basic tempi are quick. So that the music is always returning to a fast basic pulse that moves it forward. That's what makes it work. So he has time to slow down, to indulge in a little bit of rubato, as long as he gets back to tempo one. And there are moments when he does do things for rhetorical inflection. For example, the recapitulation in the first moment, when the opening material returns after all the development and, you know, turbulent falderall in the middle, he takes it slower. And he only gets back to the first tempo in the transitional material to the second theme. But the important thing is that he gets back there. It always gets back to this really vital and exciting basic pulse. So the result is that the performance as a whole is just exciting as hell. I mean, it's really exciting. It's always pressing forward. And problems in conducting the symphony in the final analysis, especially the finale, are always problems of movement. It's stagnation, and this performance never stagnates. It's always on the move. The Andante, the second movement, remember, it's Andante cantabile con alcuna licenza, which means singing at a walking pace with some freedom. Alcuna licenza is some license, technically, with some freedom. And boy, do you hear freedom. I mean, it just flows like a river. It's wonderful. And though each theme has its own tempo area, they all relate to each other sensibly. Transitions are beautifully managed. The horn solo is gorgeous, except for the first two notes, because they're at a different tempo, and it's sort of an odd little transition there. I have to point that out. But once he gets going, he's marvelous. And that big tune, ya da da da, ya da 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 da, he really pushes it. He pushes it, and it rises to just an insanely orgasmic climax. Oh my goodness, it's incredible. And the Fate theme comes roaring back like death itself. That's what this piece should be. It grabs you by the throat. Then we've got the elegant waltz-like second movement, which is elegant and waltz-like with a really quick and virtuosic central section, which goes beautifully well. And then the finale. The finale. Well, you just have to play the crap out of it. I know I'm using a lot of scatological language in this review. It's pungent, this performance, yes, and I apologize for that, but it's that kind of a performance. It's earthy. It's about organic stuff, and so the allegro of the finale really rips. I mean, it just works so well, but it rips. But you hear things. I mean, I will say, on the intellectual side, is that although there are moments where it seems that the accompaniment sort of overwhelms the melody and whatnot, I mean, Honeck has some really smart conceptions. Like at that moment where the woodwinds have the tune, da 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 da, you hear it perfectly well. Everything comes out the way it's supposed to in those moments where it's supposed to. And after the big motto theme thing in the middle with the scales going all over the place, da 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 da, that thing, that's where the piece is most likely to die. And it's going cha 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 the strings are just sawing away, and it can just it's just not moving. Well, this moves. This really moves. I mean, he does it just by accent and intensity, and by keeping the tempo up. And it's just beautiful, beautiful. And the coda is as you might expect, wonderfully triumphant. The trumpets playing the tune, not parade ground vulgar, I will say that. We have nothing scatological to say about that particular moment. And then the presto coda, oh my goodness, they just fly through it. It's exciting as all hell. I mean, the whole performance is exciting. When it's over, you should be out of your seat screaming. It's really tremendous. So yeah, this is one of the great Tchaikovsky fifths, and I am so happy to say that, and to congratulate Pittsburgh and Maestro Honeck, especially Maestro Honeck, for aligning his impulses with the syntax of the music in question. It's clear he feels this piece and loves it. Now, let's talk about the coupling. Schulhoff's 5 pieces for string quartet are delightful. They were written in the early 1920s. They are 5 little dance vignettes. There's a waltz, a serenade, an alla Czechka, a Czech polka, a tango milonga, and a concluding tarantella. So they sort of cry out for orchestration. And this orchestration is, well, let's just say, the piece is from his Dadaist period. These are exaggerated dances. They're a little grotesque. And in their string quartet version, they suggest, some, possibilities which are realized in this very vivid, but also somewhat noisy and heavy-handed orchestration. I mean, all of those grotesque elements are highlighted and exaggerated. And the only thing that's missing, quite frankly, I mean, he mentions in his notes, that the tarantella becomes so crazy that it demanded the use of the tam-tam. Well, first of all, the tam-tam could have been louder. For all the noise and hysteria going on, sometimes this thing sounds like the Rite of Spring. It could have been louder, but at the very end, that's where he needed a real whack, because it's da-da-dum, pause, da-da-dum, like this. We needed a crash in the middle there. Da-da-dum, crash, da-da-dum. That would have been even better. So next time you try it out, Maestro Honeck, throw a tam-tam in at the very end and let them really hit, bang the sucker, and you'll see how fabulously that works. Anyway, I mean, if you're gonna do it up, if you're going to make a deafening noise out of these little pieces for string quartet, then throw the whole, kitchen sink in there. So yeah, this is absolutely one of the most exciting things you've ever heard in your life. And it's amazing and it's fabulous, and you're going to want to hear it and you're going to love it if you like that take no prisoners, emotional intensity above all else Tchaikovsky. And frankly, who doesn't? If you don't like that in Tchaikovsky, then why are you listening to Tchaikovsky in the first place, right? So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.